Thank you, Derek. Welcome, everyone, to the second day of the Future of TV Advertising Conference. I'm Eleni Marouli, and I'm a principal analyst at IHS Market. And today I'm going to talk to you about what many see as kind of the next, or at least the parallel step to addressable, which was addressed a lot yesterday, programmatic TV. And I'm here to give you kind of an analyst perspective. So I'll just set the scene in 5 minutes before I invite my fantastic speakers and panelists to join me on stage. So, as with all programmatic panels, this is always an issue, right? The buzzwords are always very difficult to define. I've done about 4 or 5 panels this year on programmatic TV, and what happens is the panelists are talking almost across each other about completely different things and not really understanding what they mean by programmatic. Is it broadcaster video that's traded programmatically? Does it have to be delivered through the set-top box or through some sort of connected device? Does it have to be linear to be programmatic TV? Does it have to be live? How is it different from addressable? So there's a lot of different questions that hopefully we'll unravel in the panel and understand how it differs by market, by structure, et cetera. The challenge for me as an analyst is when I do this definition, when I'm writing my report or when I'm trying to explain to my clients what programmatic TV is I don't want to be too vague, right? Because from too vague, there's no analytical value. You want to be inclusive of all the different programmatic TV initiatives, but you also don't want it to be diluted. On the other hand, if you're too specific, what happens is the concept evolves, and then over time, your definition becomes irrelevant. So perhaps we shouldn't focus as much maybe on the definition, but rather on the opportunity. So programmatic display was very much driven right by the online companies. Programmatic video, still, most of the revenue is generated by some of the online guys. Now, programmatic TV is very interesting because you have 2 different dynamics, right? You have the TV broadcasters who are seeing their market stagnate. If we look at the compound annual growth rate between 2015 and 2020 for online versus TV, online is going to grow globally. So remember, this is also the emerging markets. On average, 11.5% every year in the next 5 years. TV is less than half of that. So TV broadcasters need to think about where are they going to cannibalize from that growth in marketing budgets. Now, on the other hand, the online platforms who have done a fantastic job of monetizing online have mostly made their money actually from small businesses, right? So if you look at the average revenue generated, for example, on Facebook every year per advertiser, it's about $5,693. Now, compare that even to a 30-second spot, one 30-second spot against a primetime show, and you can see the discrepancy. And those small advertisers, eventually their revenue or their marketing spend it's quite finite. It's going to plateau. So those online guys are trying to get some of the bigger top funnel TV brand budgets. So we have 2 interesting forces kind of working together or working with each other in order to develop these new technologies around programmatic TV. So from speaking to a lot of different companies, the 3 things that we've identified at IHS Market as being kind of the necessary elements for a programmatic TV strategy are media, right? The good content we talked about yesterday, that content is king. Data about your audience, about your consumers, about viewing behavior, about online behavior, and the technology that helps unlock that. So I would argue the broadcasters obviously got the one on the right, down, right, media, the best content, that's TV. We still maintain that. The data, I've put a very optimistic check mark. I think there is data in the broadcasting space, maybe to a varying degree depending on the market and depending on the different relationships. But I think where the challenge has been is it's been the technology part. But this is not to say that broadcasters haven't done anything about it, right? We've seen 3 different ways in which they have invested in programmatic technology. Firstly, probably quite costly and quite risky, acquisitions. So this is, for example, a preferred strategy of some of the European broadcasters like RTL or ProSieben. So you see them acquire technologies and then try to adapt them in-house to see how they work for their own purposes. The most common way to get into programmatic TV is through partnerships and business relationships, obviously. It allows you for flexibility, it allows you to experiment. The challenge is that the solution is not always very well tailored, especially to your own market. I think we'll hear on the panel today from the different European markets and how the TV market structure is completely different across countries. Now, the last one is building technology actually yourself in-house. That is quite a laborsome process. It's quite an expensive process. I think you can ask Sky what they thought about building their own in-house technology. But it means that once you have the final product, it's tailor-made for you. Now, we like to think about the future, and a good way to think about beyond kind of 12 to 18 months, kind of into 24 to 36-month time frame, is looking at some of the M&A trends in the broadcasting space. So advertising actually still remains quite small as a share of total total M&A activity for the broadcaster. But within the advertising category, if you look at what broadcasters are buying, it is mostly ad tech, and it is mostly in the supply side, right? So the SSP is the most coveted technology. So it's not that the broadcasters are sleeping through this programmatic TV revolution by any means. They're very much active, and they are investing in the future as well. So that's just a little intro, and I'd now like to invite Adam Gaynor from Dish to come and have a fireside chat with me about what they're doing in programmatic TV.